but I'm glad that you've made it, and hopefully others will. I will introduce the panelists and tell you a little bit about why we're doing this and what the whole purpose is, and some prospects for the future. I am Jennifer Grant. And I wear, like all of you probably, I wear several hats. In my professional role, I work at Cornell Agritech at the Experiment Station. I'm the director of the New York State Integrated Pest Management Program. And that's a statewide program. And the way that I like to put that simply is that we try to reduce pesticide use. We do research and a lot of training and teaching on alternative methods for managing pest problems in agriculture, as well as schools and communities, homes, parks, golf courses, etc. So that's my professional world. And I'm bringing just a little tidbit of that to tonight's meeting. The other hat that I wear is that I am currently the chair of the Town of Geneva's Sustainability Committee. This committee has only been in place for, I forget how many years, 4, maybe 5 years now, but a lot of exciting things have gone on, and I've been excited to be a part of this, and we'll get a chance to share with you more about what we've been doing in the town of Geneva. When we advertised this, we said, certainly if you're not from Geneva, you're welcome to be with us tonight. This is the first kickoff for our eco-living or lake-friendly living series of educational events that we want to do. We decided to keep tonight a little bit on the light side to go over some different topics. And at the end, if you stick with us until the end, you'll have a chance to vote on what you'd like to hear for future topics. Our intention is that we can go more in depth in the future. We want to just give more of an overview tonight, some hands-on things, but also an overview so you can get a taste of the kind of topics that we could cover. And we're doing this in partnership with the City of Geneva's Green Committee. So in a couple of minutes, Sarah Britting from that committee is going to speak a little bit to the city's committee's efforts. But it's been great to put our minds together. We've been up to some different efforts, so to come together on this education series just seemed like a no-brainer that we all wanted to be able to accomplish that. Before I say anything more, I want to introduce the co-panelists, the co-presenters for tonight. So Sarah, would you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, making sure my mic is on. My name is Sarah Meyer. I currently work at Hobart and Wayne Smith College's Office of Sustainability. Since 2014, I've worked with programming pertaining to their campus farm. And also since 2014, I became a beekeeper. And in 2017, I started my own business called Workers Ransom Honey and Hive Products. And maybe some of you have seen me out as a vendor at different farmers markets, or I also sell at Jenny Frederick's Fallon's Family Farm CSA pickup at Lake Drum. So those are places you might have seen me. But today I'm going to be talking about pollinators, which is a little bit broader of a topic as a beekeeper to speak about, because I'm most familiar with honeybees and beekeeping rather than necessarily broad pollination, but it's all important things. And I was raised in the city of Geneva, and I currently reside in the town. And I'm a member, a light member of the Sustainability Committee, and starting to be able to attend meetings more regularly.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. And Jacob?
Hey, my name is Jacob Fox. My main capacity talking tonight is as the Town of Geneva Climate Smart Coordinator. And basically I've been working for the last few years with the town on sustainability initiatives pertaining to waste, specifically landfill diversion, as well as stormwater infrastructure and energy efficiency and chemical usage, kind of the whole span of, trying to figure out as a community, both from the municipal level and then from a residential and business commercial level, how can we reduce our environmental impact and, set up, resilient systems that will allow us to be more sustainable in the future. So, I'm going to go in tonight to talk about a few things that we've been up to at the Town of Geneva. And also, I run a composting facility. So I can kind of speak, from that aspect. And that's, kind of from the soil aspect, from green infrastructure, which is a common practice that we'll talk about in this for stormwater retention and filtration. So I'm excited to talk more.
Great, thanks, Jacob. I would also, and I apologize, Sarah Britting is going to say a few words on behalf of the City Greens Committee. And Sarah, I apologize, I don't have you as a co-panelist, but I've got to find you on the list, and then I can allow you to speak. For those of you who use Zoom a lot, some of us use the Zoom meetings a lot, but tonight we're using the webinar. Can be helpful with big groups. And so that's what we're trying to do, and it just we're not as familiar with it. So if you see us having a couple troubles, that's the reason. And let's see, Sarah, are you able to speak now?
I think so.
Yes, excellent.
Great.
Welcome.
Hi. Hi, everybody. I am a recent member of the Geneva Green Committee, which has been in existence. I'm kind of guesstimating on this, about 10 plus years. And our 2020 initiatives, the first is to find alternatives to synthetic pesticides. Ann Hoyt and I collaborated on doing research and writing a pretty comprehensive memo, which was presented to the Geneva City Council. I believe it was a January 2020 meeting, or actually it was February. And we then joined with the Geneva, Town of Geneva Sustainability Committee to help educate the public on safe alternatives to synthetic pesticides as part of the eco-friendly properties program. And we hope to work with the City of Geneva Department of Public Works to help them find safe alternatives, as well as the residents and commercial businesses in the City of Geneva. And that is our one initiative. Another initiative, which Jacob Fox is working on, is the composting project, which will be in the City of Geneva, and we hope to work with the town on this as well. So thank you, Jennifer, for having an opportunity to share this with the public, and I'll let you go forward.
Great, thank you, Sarah. I will say on behalf of both the committees I think most of the attendees are from Geneva, whether you're from the town or the city. I think that both committees would love to have more participation, and at least speaking for the town, if you come and have a special issue or pet project that you're interested in, it's all that much more likely to happen if you bring your energy to the table. So we're willing to consider almost anything in the sustainability realm, and we'll just, we just push a button and Jacob goes. So there's lots of possibilities. And before, I'm going to turn it over to Jacob in just a second. So I was mentioning we're in webinar mode, so we won't be able to see you. You can't speak unless we give you permission, but the easiest way to communicate with us is to use the chat box. If you don't see the chat box, down at the bottom of your screen, if you scroll across, you should see a little chat bubble there. If you click on that, you'll open up the chat box and you'll see where you can type in. You can either type to just the panelist, or you can type to everybody. You can choose who it is you're speaking to, and the three of us will try and keep an eye on that chat box if you're having trouble, or if you want to interrupt and ask the speaker something. So with that said, I am going to mute myself and open up the slides, so that'll just take a second. Okay, hopefully everybody can see these slides. Go crazy in the chat box if you can't, or my co-panelists can tell me. But we've introduced ourselves and the topic for this evening. As we said, first of all, Jacob's going to spend a moment talking about what we mean by an eco-property. It's really a broad idea that we have. We're not trying to dictate to you what that might mean. but he'll talk a little bit about what that could mean. And then he's going to talk about some things that go into having an eco property in the framework of some efforts that are going on in the town of Geneva right now. After that, I will speak a little bit on some tips about things like lawn care and pests in our environment that I'm really focusing in on some things that you could do right now that might help you to avoid pesticide use or different problems and that kind of thing. But while we're all stuck at home right now, some things that you could pay attention to. And then, as Sarah mentioned, she's going to spend the last segment speaking about pollinator friendliness, basically what you can do to protect and promote pollinators in your own yard. So that's how the evening's going to roll forward, and we'll take a break between each speaker to make sure that we're catching up on any questions or issues that you're having with the Zoom as we go along. So Jacob, take it away, please. Oops, I gotta do.
Yep. Thanks. So, you know, the theme behind an eco property is that, you know, we all have an impact both, you know, in our personal lives, but also in how our property affects our everyone around us. Eco is, you know, we use that term eco kind of to ecologically conscious. You know, how there's a lot of different factors that go into that. So, you know, we're thinking about permeable surfaces. Everyone has roofs. You know, we have very little green roofs. So, you know, most roofs run off. You know, most people have driveways. So we're really trying to be considerate of the runoff. And if you do have runoff, how do you manage it? And because the truth is that there's a lot of makeup, so that materials that we don't want running into the lake, both chemicals and natural materials, not good for the water we drink, natural asset. So we want to think about permeability and catchment, and I'm going to go into that a little bit later with actually a program that we have in the town of Geneva called a lake friend.
Excuse me, Jacob.
Program that
Jacob?
we have stormwater mitigation.
Jacob, can you hear me?
You know, we're also thinking about.
You're breaking up a little bit.
Yes.
I don't know if your bandwidth is challenged, but you might want to turn off your video while you're speaking, and hopefully it'll work better.
Yeah, I just turned my video off. Is it working now better?
I think so, yes.
Okay. So, I mean, long story short, with the permeable surfaces, we'll go into that in a little bit with the lake-friendly home certification program. And then, so the second one, we're thinking about chemical management. The biggest one that we're just getting over is salts for you know, icing. What? Can you hear me?
Yep, I think you just started to cut out talking about salt management.
So, you know, chemical management, we're thinking about, you know, road salt. Sorry, you're cutting out as well. So I'm hearing part of what you're speaking. Can you hear me like continuously now?
You're breaking up periodically.
Getting closer to the monitor. Can you hear me continuously now?
Right now, you're good.
Okay, I'm closer to my monitor, so this will work better. So, you know, with the first bullet, you know, we're thinking about this storm water. With the second one, we're thinking a lot about road salts and how do you manage your car chemicals, and then and other things that are commonly used. And one that always comes to mind is drain cleaners. how do we manage a clogged drain? Is it through chemicals, or is it through manual work? And all of those things are all part of good chemical management. And even lawn care chemicals are also involved in that as well. And pollinators, we always want to keep our properties cognizant of our neighbors, but we also, the insects that we depend on, both for our life and for our industries. And Sarah's going to talk more about that. Minimal waste production, that's a lot of stuff we focus on in the town, with trash, like, whatever people produce as part of their, also, on their properties, and how do they handle the waste. And one that that I'm going to talk a little bit more about is the backyard composting program. And so that's, kind of your organic waste. And so we, everyone knows about the reduce, reuse, recycle components. And we try to fit that into all different aspects of both what we're talking about from residential projects, but also in the town. The town deals with a lot of materials. We're actually going through a whole material analysis, creating a baseline and trying to manage our materials better. And so all of those things go into it. And then energy management, both from an efficiency aspect, and that's a big focus with us in the town. Is there's a lot of energy efficiency programs that are out there. Specifically, there's ones through NYSEG that people don't know about, that have like multiple family dwellings that you can get free shower, like water regulators and other things to save a lot of money on water and light bills usually. And so, these things are all, but I'm sure there's more, but these are ones that we think about all the time in managing your space, both from a personal level, but also from, you're, responsible. If you're an owner, you're, somewhat responsible for your house and your home. And if you're a renter, you're responsible for a percentage of, that. So that's, kind of what. Jen, you want to go on to the next one? Jen? Oh, thanks. Yeah, so this is the Town of Geneva Backyard Compost Program, and we were lucky to get a grant through the county for this to basically make it a $20 program for this backyard compost box that you see in the picture there. And it's a wooden compost box. It's 3 feet tall, 3 feet wide, 3 feet across, and it holds 3 cubic yards of material for yard waste, food waste. And so we also, for that $20, you get that box, compost accelerator, a how-to brochure, and then you can email me and I will answer questions about what to do with your compost. And so we've actually rolled this out in the town. We have 70 people in the town of Geneva that have done this program. And we're looking to do more in the future as well. And this is a big component of that lake-friendly living certification as well. So, that's managing your yard waste, and then your food waste as well. And this we just started on the town website. You basically can just go to this link, and it's available on our website. And if you can't find it, obviously let us know, and we can help you out with that. But you can submit questions and we can answer them, and hopefully it can sponsor some of the dialogue for these education sessions, as well as some of the programs that we're doing. And we really appreciate if you were to, just let us know. So this certification we started, we did a soft rollout last year, and we're gonna be doing it again this summer. Focusing on residential stormwater control. We know we have a stormwater problem, and we have too many nutrients entering the lake, and we all have a part to play. So we wanted to create this program to incentivize people to manage their stormwater. So 3 levels: bronze, silver, gold. Bronze is you maintain a lake-friendly property, and we have some information on that, and that's a pollinator-friendly property, and it's one that keeps the grass cut above a certain level, and sponsors a healthy ecosystem. And then a silver level is you actually have done something like a rain barrel, a backyard composting box, or a rain garden to manage your stormwater. And then a gold is for if you've done a little bit more and not only manage your stormwater, but a little bit of the local stormwater as well. And big landowners have kind of a advantage in that, but anyone can have a rain garden or multiple rain barrels, or and we actually have a rain barrel giveaway program. Unfortunately, it just got canceled this April in the town of Geneva, but we're hoping we can have it again. And this program is not meant to shame anyone. It's really there's this shared natural asset that is our lake that we all need to protect and foster for the future. And so we all have a part to play. Everyone with a roof and who drives a car, and we all are participating in these impermeable surfaces. So we need to figure out how to permeate more water. And so this program is meant to be kind of a celebration of stormwater control and through green infrastructure.
Jacob, I'm going to interrupt for a second. Bill McAdoo is raising his hand. Let's see if that was on purpose, Bill. It will take me just a moment to allow you to talk and unmute you. Are you able to talk, Bill?
Hi, Jennifer.
Hello.
Has this program, the Lake Friendly Living Certification, been shared with Seneca Lake Pure Waters? As you know, I'm a member of the board, and we are coming out with a similar certification this year. Maura Toole is working on that. So my question is this being shared upstream to all of the Seneca Lake residents?
Yeah, so I mean, I know Maura, and we've been in contact about this. I think the Canandaigua was our really inspiration. They have a lake-friendly certification as well.
And Jacob, we're utilizing much of their information as we put together our Seneca Lake program as well.
Yeah, I think the one difference between our program is really trying to focus on that stormwater aspect. So the silver designation, you really have to prove, and it's very, very simple with any rain garden that someone's putting together or rain barrel. You can make an estimation of stormwater controlled, and then if you can exceed the amount of stormwater that you create basically through your roof and your driveway, then you can get to that gold certification. And I think we're all going back and forth with these certifications, and I think it's good that we, all are considering the lake health. I always just try to focus on metrics, really trying to make it a goal driven. I think our bronze level is really that kind of, you're trying to do something, but really silver and gold are taking a specific action in the stormwater department. And that's really what I've been trying to focus this program a lot about.
Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other questions on that, so I'm going to forward you ahead. And there's a little lag time, Jacob, so sorry about that. I think that this and the retention basin are your last slides.
Yep. So these are just a few things that we're going to be shooting for in this year and the upcoming. Increasing stormwater capture and filtration, both through the residential side, but also on the town side. I'll be sharing a photo next about an upland retention project that we installed this past year with help with Ontario County Soil and Water. And then waste diversion, we're always doing programs at our transfer station, over on White Springs Road. We have a construction and demolition debris pay-as-you-throw program going on every spring and summer. And then we also are doing a fix-it clinic. But, the in-person activities are, in flux at the moment. So the fix-it clinic is TBD. But, really trying to focus on waste diversion from the transfer station, as well as programs offering audits. We're trying to roll out an audit program for businesses and residents who kind of want to understand what they could divert. And so we're looking forward to that. Energy efficiency, there's a lot of programs that are already paid for that you just kind of need to contact a representative that either is through the NICEAG process. And so we're trying to roll that out to the town landlords and other homeowners in the town. Active transportation, we're always trying to increase, the access for people who don't have a car. We have a few programs that we're working on, but always looking for more participation with that. Efficient chemical usage, that's a big one that we're focusing on right now. We're doing a full analysis of our road salts and our fuel usage and our waste metrics and everything as it relates to the town. And we're just trying to figure out if there's opportunities to reduce any of those chemicals, as well as learn different best management practices. The town has already done things to reduce road salt, and we're just always looking to, just protect Seneca Lake when we're considering that.
Jacob, you have a question. There's a question on the chat from Frank. He says, can you address land slope from level to steep and its effect on runoff from lakefront property?
We're going to probably have to have a more in-depth conversation, Frank. I hope email me. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into lakefront property, depending on, historical land usage in that area. So I'd contact me offline about that one. You go to the next slide, Jen. So this is a project that we installed at our Kashong Conservation Area, which is our public walking area on Kashong Road in the town of Geneva. What you can see there is an earthen berm that was established to capture that water. Previously, the water used to rush down during heavy storm flows, and it would cause property damage below as well as erosion. And so Ontario County Soil and Water, in conjunction with our highway department, built this berm, created this catchment area on the right, and then with an outflow on the left you see below there. So basically it captures all that stormwater and high flow, lets the sediment settle, and then slowly lets the water trickle out. And we actually did 2 of these in the Kashong Conservation Area, and we've done several of them throughout the town of Geneva. So this, is really that gold level on the lake-friendly living certification. I mean, although this is the town property, but we're really looking for landowners in the town who are interested in, creating these farm ponds, and we can work with Soil and Water Conservation District and line up funding opportunities. There's a lot of funding streams available for landowners to do things just like this, and they can be incredibly valuable for the watershed. You go next slide.
Yeah, so I think that was the end of the slides. If people have questions for Jacob, or Jacob, if you have anything else you want to throw in, you can do either. Both has been working. You can type into the chat box, or you can raise your hand and we'll let you speak. I did type into the chat box, but I'll just say it verbally as well. As far as compost goes, you can also take compost to the people in the town of Geneva can take compost to the transfer station if you're not ready yet, or not in a situation where you want to be composting at home.
Yes, thank you for that. And yeah, so we're involved in a lot of different things, and I really, encourage people to reach out. And if they have, really questions or projects that they're interested in and maybe don't have the bandwidth to do, or to see if they're even possible, and so let me know. And that's really what I'm looking and what I'm around to do.
I see, Sarah, you have your hand raised, and I think you're still able to talk from before, so give it a try.
Can anyone from the city of Geneva join the compost program? Get the $20 box and use that program?
The county is rolling out a countywide program, supposedly very soon. I would ask them when that's going to happen, because I mean,
who at the county do we ask?
Carla Jordan and the Sustainability Committee. That's what their job is.
Okay, I'll get her email address offline.
Yep, I can help you out.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. Anybody else have a burning question for right now? It looks like we're clear. We're not trying to pretend that amongst the 3 of us that we know all the answers, but just like anything, we're glad to hear people's interest. If it's things that we can't answer easily, we'd be more than happy to try and help make the connections, or bring in the right speakers, or again, make the connections to try and find out the answers. We're excited that people are interested. Okay, so I will try putting my video on so that you have a face as I speak, but if I start breaking up like Jacob was, let me know and I'll turn that off. Okay, so for my segment, as I mentioned, I've really taken from the smattering of different types of knowledge that I have, looking at some things that you can do right now while you're stuck at home. So I wanted to make a few comments about lawn care. Very generally, without going in too deep, when we think about best land usage for a number of different reasons, and especially about lawns, certainly In the United States, we have this heritage of the big craze, lawn craze, that started back in the 1950s. And some people still have a very strong mindset that they want a really dark green lawn that is a perfect stand of grass and a certain type of look and whatnot. And although some people never got into that mindset or have moved away from that, some people are still feeling that way. But I would encourage you to think about your property. Like, do you just want to look at it? Do you want to walk on it? Do you have kids who are playing there very actively, so you do want lawn? You really got to think about it so that you can get the lowest maintenance setup as possible that would be appropriate for your property. For the areas where you do want grass or turf, those of us who work with turf grass are sorry that the word turf has been co-opted, that now it means artificial turf. I always have that debate with my daughters. They'll say, oh, we get to play on the turf tomorrow night. And I'll say, no, you get to play on the artificial turf. So that the meaning of the word turf has changed a bit. But anyway, if you are growing turf grass or grass, a lot of the solution to your problems will be to make that as healthy as possible. And there's a number of things that I won't go into tonight, but it's picking the best variety and cultivar of grass for your site, and then keeping it as healthy and dense and thick as possible. That thickness is really important for crowding out weeds, and really herbicide usage on lawns for getting rid of weeds is really the highest usage of pesticides that we have on home lawns in the United States. So it's how you pick and choose your grasses and how you maintain your lawn that will really help you move away from any need for herbicides. We could also talk, again, I won't go into this depth tonight, but some people will talk about a tolerance for what we might call weeds, or a variety of plants in your lawn is another way, another part of the puzzle sometimes for moving away from herbicide use in lawns. So again, I really tried to focus on some things that you can do right now. So we're finally getting a glimpse of spring, despite the fact that there were snowflakes today. But something you can be working on right now is to seed bare areas. Weeds are very opportunistic. So if you let the ground lie bare, it may be that you had kids playing there. It may be that some cars went off the roadway and dug it up over the winter, or a snow plow. There's all sorts of different reasons why you might have some bare areas. But if you can rough up that soil and put some grass seed in now and take care of that area, that'll do a world of good for preventing weeds from ever getting in there. Another couple of really basic techniques, and this is the time of year to pay attention to it, is raising your mowing height. It's very simple to raise the deck on your mower. Every model of mower is a little bit different in what it allows you to do, but your ideal is to go to about 3 to 3.5 inches is how tall you want your grass to be for most varieties. That's what you're aiming towards. In a moment, I'll be talking about a resource where there's some great simple videos too that are targeted to homeowners that I want you to know about, that if you don't quite know how to raise the height on your lawnmower, hopefully the video, if you go watch that, will help you to do that. And sharpening your mower blade. A lot of people are aware that you ought to sharpen your mower blade, but many people don't do it, or they only do it every couple of years. Certainly this is the perfect time. A lot of us are getting our mowers out for the first time this year. It was funny, I was playing a video of this yesterday in preparation for this talk, and I caught my husband this afternoon out sharpening the mower blade on our little our electric push mower. So I'd never seen him do that before. And I meant to put that picture in, but a lot of you know Keith. So Keith, kudos that you got out there today and sharpened the mower blade. But the reason we talk about that is for 2 reasons. One of them I've got here is the first point in on the slide. You actually use 20 to 30% less fuel. If you've got a gas-powered mower, you will use 20 to 30% less gasoline by having a sharp mower blade. It's much harder to push a dull blade around, and every time I say that statistic, it really shocks me. So that alone should be a good motivator for keeping your mower blade sharp. The other one is that it really keeps your grass healthier. When you're using a dull mower blade, you're really bludgeoning the grass. If you can look and see the tips of your grass blades, and they're kind of beat up. So that grass is less healthy. Therefore, it can be more prone to diseases. And just overall, it's less healthy, so it might be less competitive with weeds or otherwise more susceptible to pests. Every once in a while, I'm hearing something that might just be feedback. Is everything going okay with the sound quality?
Everything's great. You have one question as well.
Okay, and what is it?
What is your opinion on clover lawns?
So I alluded to, long ago, and now again, people are thinking about different types of lawns, and that lawn doesn't have to be a turf grass stand. Clover is great for pollinators. That's something that Sarah might talk about in a few minutes. However, you might not like clover too much if you've got kids playing in your lawn all the time, because the bees that are attracted is right where your kids are going to be playing. And so you might not like it for that reason. Clover is also not very good if you, again, like if you have kids playing there and you want them to have good footing. It has a very weak root system, so it's not good for that. However, if you just want green cover on your lawn, clover is great. It will bind nitrogen in the soil, so that's a really great aspect of it. So if you don't need the footing and the bees aren't a worry, if the bees might be a positive for you, for sure, having clover in there is a great way to go. And there are now becoming more available lawn mixes that are very non-traditional, that get into a diversity of plants such as clover. So those are just a few quick points to make about what you can be thinking about to expand your mindset of what a lawn is, and really think about what you want from your lawn will help you determine what you want it to be comprised of as far as the plants in the lawn.
You were cutting out a little bit on that last one. You might want to turn your video off.
Okay, let me do that. And it might, I think most of us, all of us here are not native New Yorkers, but we're all New Yorkers, I think. And sometimes I just get going. So I'll try not to do that also. I alluded to this resource. Nora wants to know if she's seen and heard. You're not seen, Nora, but you are heard. Guest speaker, Nora Waldron. Anyway, this resource can be really helpful. We produced it a few years ago at Cornell. There was an older document that we had called Lawn Care Without Pesticides. It was extremely popular, and over time it kept getting bigger with more information. And eventually Lori Brewer a few years ago turned it into this iBook. Anybody who has an Apple product, whether you have a Macintosh computer, an iPad, or an iPhone, any of those formats, you can get the iBook. Is a great way to look at this information. But we've also made it all available on the Cornell Turfgrass website, which I have the URL there. And you can go take a look through this book, is how to best take care of your lawn. There's a lot of great videos in there, just that are nice and short, 1 or 2 minutes long, such as how to seed a bare area, how to sharpen your mower blade at home, things like that, just the real hands-on stuff. I mentioned how to raise the height of your cut, how to raise that mower deck. All of those things, there's some nice, easy to watch short videos on how to do that. So I highly recommend this resource, whether you get the iBook or you want to just go and look at it online. Either way works just fine. This is, if you choose to go to the Cornell Turfgrass website, I wanted you to see what that is. I think I just had the URL on the page before, but it's easy to find through a search as well. But this is the home page, and hopefully you're seeing my arrow, but up on that gray line across the top is lawns. And if you mouse over that, it will take you to this book that I've been talking about, to that content. And you can get some information. A lot of the information on this website is for commercial commercial, professional audiences, but that in particular, that lawn care area is really targeted towards people with lawns. A couple other things that I'm going to mention quickly is more in the specific pest realm. These are white grubs, scarab grubs. Lots of times people think that they have grubs in their lawn. In the old days when we were watching more commercials on TV, if you saw the commercial come on for grub killer, then you felt like, oh gosh, that must be what's wrong with my lawn. And people would go out and treat because they made the assumption that they had grubs. I certainly don't have the time tonight to go into depth about grubs, but I wanted to comment that they have a 1-year life cycle. In fact, so I won't talk about that too much. The next slide will show it. But right now, if you have grubs in your lawn, they're very large. They're coming back up to the surface regardless of what species they are. So they're pretty easy to find. If they've done a lot of feeding, they eat the roots on grass. And this picture on the left shows a very badly damaged lawn from grubs that you can actually pull on the turf surface, and it just pulls away because the roots are no longer there. I would encourage you, if you would suspect that you have grubs in your lawn or have had a grub problem, is to go look now. If it's that bad, you'll be able to pull back and see. You can also use a shovel or a bulb planter to cut down into the soil and see if you happen to have grubs. However, it's a terrible time to treat. It's too late. They've done the damage that they're going to do. They will actually be pupating very soon, and the adults will come out. So treating them now is really, if you're using a pesticide, an insecticide, it's an environmental waste because it's just too late. The damage has already happened. And this picture here of the beetle, the Japanese beetle, is a common one that we have in the area. These beetles can fly as far as a mile. So if you kill these grubs now, it's not like you're saving yourself from having trouble this coming summer. They just fly too far. So what you want to do is to realize that you might have grub problems in your lawn, to be aware of what they look like and what the damage looks like, but don't do any treatment. Don't do anything about them at this point. And again, I won't go into depth on this, but it's a life cycle of what grubs are. And I just want to bring home the point that they've been down deep in the soil all winter. The eggs were laid last July, most likely, give or take. The eggs were laid into the soil down below the turf surface, hatched out, and those grubs became bigger and bigger late summer into the fall. And then as the temperatures dropped down, so did the grubs. And then now is the time that they're coming back to the surface. So sometimes we see that damage as your grass is coming out from the winter, is when the damage that they did back then is becoming apparent. But you can take a look now, but this is not the time for treatment. If there's a lot of interest in grubs, this is something that we could focus on another time. Hopefully to get together someday in person to do education, but certainly if we can't, to do a webinar as well. So let us know if there's interest in that topic. I think I just wanted to mention 2 more things on pests before I turn things over. Again, just because it seems so timely, I wanted to mention mosquitoes. They are out already. Those folks who are on the line who are our neighbors may have seen this poor decrepit hot tub in our backyard that hasn't worked in years, and it collects water. And as I say, on Easter Sunday, I saw wrigglers out there, the larval mosquitoes. So if you let water stand, you're going to get mosquitoes. In the summer, they can develop in as quickly as 2 to 3 days, is from an adult laying her eggs in this water, the wrigglers developing, and new mosquitoes hatching off. So you got to be diligent about this kind of water collection to not let it sit for too long. If you have bird baths, you need to change that water regularly. Any kind of buckets or containers that you have that might be collecting water, dump them, either make them go away completely or dump them regularly. In the summer, as I said, you want to do that at least every 2 or 3 days. And one last pest that I wanted to mention are ticks. Once again, they are out. Those of you who live on this end of town, the Kashong Conservation Area that we've mentioned is a lovely place to hike, and it is a treasure trove of black-legged ticks. which are the ticks that carry Lyme disease. So we're really concerned about them. We took a hike up there the other day and found several ticks, and he who shall not be mentioned on this webinar had one embedded because he didn't inspect well enough when he got done hiking. But again, I just wanted to encourage you to think about self-inspection. We have a lot of resources that you can go after. Don't Get Tick New York is the name of the campaign, and just looking for that on the web, you can see a lot of information about what you can do. Thinking about your eco property, one of the things that you can do is to manage the borders of your property. If it makes sense, you can put some kind of a mulch material between your yard and the woods is one way to manage some of that. Keeping the lawn mowed in the areas where you might have kids playing or where you're walking, the shorter mowed grass is much less risk than the higher grasses where the ticks come up. What you see with this tick up top, it's called questing. They like to get up onto a blade of grass or a branch and kind of reach out and wait for an animal to pass by. So you can manage your property in certain ways to help reduce the risk from ticks right in your own yard, and certainly your own self-inspection whenever you're out in areas that might have ticks are really important. And I think oh, I was just reviewing the things that I have mentioned so that you can do at this point. Seeding bare areas of your lawn, raise your mowing height, sharpen your mower blade, check for grubs, learn about them, but don't treat for them now. And dump the water where mosquitoes, any standing water that you have where mosquitoes could be laying eggs, and protecting yourself and your pets from ticks. So that, and before I turn things over, because Sarah will be our final speaker, I just wanted, for those of you, if it's not in your consciousness, not only is it Earth Day next week, but it is the 50th anniversary, which is, it's really exciting, but perhaps depressing, depending on how you look at things. And it's so unfortunate that we won't, that some of the events that people have planned are not happening. Sarah Britting had some wonderful things planned for a movie that was going to be, there was going to be a couple of movies shown at the Smith Opera House. So we'll get back to that sometime. But I just hope that you all think about Earth Day and think about something that you can do locally, maybe something lasting, maybe something shorter term, but I'll finish up by saying happy Earth Day to everybody. And before I do officially turn it over to Sarah, were there any questions that came up while I was babbling here?
No, none in the chat.
Okay, looks good. Then Sarah, you can go ahead and take over the screen, hopefully.
One question, where can I get seed?
That's a good question. So you can certainly get seed many places online, and most of the hardware stores are open as well. So either way, that's one of the places that are open. I will say I have not looked lately, but one of the places that I have liked getting, not to be endorsing anybody in particular, but I have liked to get grass seed in the past is at Miller Hardware, because they had some nice conservation mixes up on Route 14. But if you're looking for more of an alternative lawn, certainly go online and see what kind of mixes, what kind of eco mixes and diverse and pollinator friendly mixes that you could get. There's quite a variety available.
Any other questions?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead, Sarah?
Okay. All right, well, thank you for sticking to the entire presentation tonight. I'm the final of the three of us. And tonight I'm talking about pollinators. It's a perfect time of year to be bringing pollinators up because they're definitely becoming more active as spring really settles in here. I said earlier, but I am a beekeeper. I have a company called Workers Ransom Honey, but I've also kept bees at Hobart and William Smith College's farm since 2015 as well. And I put a presentation together. These slides are really speaking to some of the things I've tried in my property and through my programming at Hobart and William Smith. I'm by no means an entomologist, someone that studies insects, or necessarily an ecologist when it comes to understanding the full spectrum and impacts of pollinators. But I am wanting to share what I believe to be their value and why it would be beneficial to attract them and encourage them to your eco-friendly property. I'm also a master gardener, so I don't say that in that I am a master of all, but I do know a number of gardeners that have expertise in some of this subject matter. So if I can't answer a question, I do have some resources that I could field questions to if necessary. So, let me see, how do I advance this? Oh yeah, that's interesting. How do I advance? Oh, there we go. It did it. Okay, I got to click my button or mouse. Okay, so I just have a few slides, and I know we're going over the hour point, so I'm happy to answer questions. I'm actually better with questions, so it's harder for me to do these webinar presentations in a way that I usually field my audience and gauge interest and field questions and such. So if there is something, I do encourage you to raise your hand or put something into the chat. I'm happy to be somewhat interrupted because it helps me keep moving along and not get too stuck on my bullets here. But just really generally, what is pollination? And it's basically the moving of the pollen grains between the male part and the female part of the flower. It assists with reproduction of the plant, which leads to the production of seeds and fruit, many of which we eat and consume, but also other animals do too. Pollination can happen or take place in different ways. Tonight we're talking about attracting pollinators to do the movement of pollen grains for seed and fruit, but the pollen grains can also move in other ways. Plants can be self-pollinated. They can be pollinated by the wind, like corn or wheat, or they can even be pollinated by water. But today I'm speaking more to pollinators. And what these pollinators are doing are they're attracted to the flower and inadvertently offering this service of pollination. Did I say water? Flower. And so they're consuming the nectar and the pollen. And the nectar of the plant is the sugar, which is their energy oftentimes for the insect especially. And some of the birds too, like hummingbirds and others that are collecting nectar. And then the pollen is the protein source. There are multiple different kinds of pollinators. Some of them are in the image here. Flies, beetles, butterflies, birds, small mammals, bats, and things like that. And I just thought it was interesting because I know there's a huge campaign for Save the Bees, the bumper stickers and the hashtags. And even as a beekeeper, I kind of think it's not just about the bees. Although we do have 450 native species of bees in New York State, there are far more other pollinators as well that I just mentioned. And in fact, the honeybee is actually an introduced species. It's non-native to America. So it came here during colonization time period, but at this point it's thought to be more of managed livestock. There are wild honeybees at this point too. So there are multiple services that pollinators provide to our ecosystem. And I've mentioned the fruit and the seeds that we often consume, but we don't want to also forget the other services and things that we consume too or benefit from, such as nuts and medicinals and dyes, oils and fibers and other raw materials. Hemp is something now that is also, I believe hemp is wind pollinated, but I should also make the note that I do know for a fact the honeybees do collect pollen. They don't necessarily pollinate the flower or assist in the plant's pollination, but they do collect the pollen to consume. So even if a plant is wind pollinated like corn or hemp, the pollen can still be collected and beneficial to the insect. And then also the services of the plant itself flourishing, being that a seed or fruit had been dispersed by an animal or a pollinator in its creation. That plant will flourish, establish roots, and assist with preventing soil erosion and thereby improving water quality. And the increase in carbon sequestration is in that the fact that the plant will conduct photosynthesis and sequester carbon in that way as well. So really, if you think systematically as an ecosystem, the pollinators are doing far more for the system than if we just think of ourselves as being able to receive our food products from them. And oftentimes, I had mentioned the Save the Bees campaign, but Save the Pollinators. And that's oftentimes because the attention that needs to be given to the shift in habitat availability in overwintering sites for pollinators, the pollution, which we've seen much of it clear in terms of air pollution with the COVID distancing and quarantining, but then also diseases and changes in climate are also impacting our pollinators. And I can speak to honeybees, especially with parasites. There's a varroa mite parasite that is definitely a challenge for managing honeybees. So I'm going to talk about a few items. This slide was really just to kind of let you know what I will be talking about, but I tried to narrow it down as a property owner wanting to be more eco-friendly or maybe even considering becoming that lake-friendly property owner that Jacob had mentioned. There are some acts that you can put into place or implement in your property to assist and attract pollinators and encourage them to thrive. One is giving them shelter, offering them a variety of foods, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the steps you could take to assist in them thriving once you have attracted them. And then, of course, it seems as though I know what was mentioned earlier, Ann Hoyt and Sarah Britting have done a number of efforts in the city to advocate and educate people on the impacts of pesticides, and I'm assuming along with that is to promote pollinators. So we all want to help each other out, learning and how to do these things on our properties more instinctually, I guess. So I have a couple of photos here. I'm not sure if hopefully you can see my mouse moving. Oh, yeah, I don't want to touch my mouse. So that is my garden out front of my property. And one of the actions that you could take, or lack thereof, is to leave your leaves and your woody debris from the stalks and stems of your plants. I have a lot of coneflower in that garden, but also tall grasses. And I just weed whacked them down last week. So a lot of those grasses, they're even taller than I am. And I whack them down after winter has passed. And I will leave that material in the garden basically to act as an organic mulch or natural mulch. But it has dual purpose or multi-purpose, I guess, in that that's creating habitat and attracting locations that pollinators can either, for birds, potentially gather nesting materials, but also insects for burrowing or laying eggs and thriving within that its own microsystem there. I know some people might have brush piles and wood piles or soil that's undisturbed, and that oftentimes is, I guess, could be thought of as an insect hotel. Many insects are either burrowing or use crevices to nest and raise their young and establish themselves. So thinking of your property, not just parallel to the ground, or you want to think vertically and horizontally. And so really keep making your landscape a little bit more complex amongst the trees all the way down to the lawn. There's a picture here at the lower right of a water feature that is easily made out of a terracotta pot turned upside down with its dish put on top. Those are marbles, but you can also float little twigs. But if you do want to make sure the water feature is freshened up. You don't want to have, like what Jennifer had mentioned, mosquito larvae nesting there. But the marbles are there for insects to land on and get a drink. And I do know for a fact this is one of the things that is critical for honeybees at this time of year, to remain hydrated. And so I oftentimes are providing a drinking source to my bees. And you might have seen other insects, or even when you're putting sugar water and such out for hummingbirds, and even birds themselves for bird baths. So that's all promoting pollinators in that way. And then up in the upper right is an image of a bee hotel. That's for native bees, and I had mentioned there's 450 varieties of native bees in New York State, and the placement of those types of bee houses or bee hotels is around 40 inches off the ground, and they're nesting and laying their eggs inside those tubular wooden straws and tubes and drilled holes in wood, and they do overwinter in there, and you can take the hotel off and bring it inside, and then bring it back out in the spring and for them to emerge. But some people do that in hopes that they withstand the winter a little bit better. Okay.
Sarah, we got a question there.
Yep.
Is the addition of habitat for pollinators also a habitat for ticks? Any special things to do or not to do to ensure pollinator habitat instead of ticks?
Yeah, I think ticks are definitely something to be aware of. I know I spend a lot of time outside, and I think the advice that Jennifer gave is to do regular tick checks. Ticks travel and are found in so many different places. I have an example of my own story where for Christmas time, I brought in a Christmas tree that I had purchased, a fresh one, and I was sitting there admiring the lights I had just put on as I sat on the couch, and a tick was on my leg. So I know that is bringing wildlife inside my house, but I'm just saying there are different vectors and ways in which insects, even attracting stinging insects, you do want to pay attention to some of your actions, so that also, as Jennifer said about clover, planting certain things that are attracting insects you may be allergic to, or if you have children, it's definitely something you want to be cognizant of and aware of. But I can't say that I change my planting behaviors in my garden due to ticks. I regularly check. I wear long clothing and pants and high boots. I think taking those precautions are probably your best effort, especially if you want to encourage pollinators. It's hard to distinguish which pollinator you're attracting sometimes. Is there any other questions?
Nope, I'm not seeing any.
Okay. So the number 2, beyond shelter, is to provide food. And I talked about the nectar and the pollen being food sources for many pollinators, but also you want to think about the plants that you're hosting on your property as food source and a host for larvae of those future flying insects or pollinators. And a great example is the monarch, which I have shown there in the leaf image. And there are other plants that have woody stalks and almost straw-like stems that you can be used as locations for insects to lay their eggs. So thinking of that not just as, oh, what flowers will be attracted, but there's other ways in which your landscape can provide food for pollinators as well. You definitely want to encourage different variety and types of flowers. I try to think about bloom time too, so that they are blooming throughout the entire season from early spring to late fall. And I can speak to certain varieties of plants. I have a couple listed here down below in terms of the diversity, but planting them in little clusters or groups on your landscape too makes it a little bit easier and more efficient work for a pollinator. Again, speaking to honeybees, they're most attracted to, they're going to fly to whatever's easiest and most accessible. They're trying to conserve their energy and their resources as well. So to have to travel so far and to work so hard to forage for a pollinator plant or pollen and nectar, you're wanting to try to make it as easy as possible for them. So I do a lot of planting of flowers on my property, but I rarely have just, a single potted plant, or I'm definitely flower heavy and bush and berry heavy on my property. And if I could get rid of all my lawn, I would. But that's a lot of digging and investment as well. I talked a little bit about diversity, but if you want to think about growing some herbs, I would say herbs are really nice to have year round, and they're fairly easy to grow. Some of them are more challenging than others, but even if you put some in your garden or in a container on your windowsill and left outside, those are able, if you dry them, they're kind of a gift that keeps on giving throughout the year, and they are definitely preferred by pollinators. Zinnias and cosmos and any kind of, I have a zinnia, the bright pink flower, the chives in the upper right and the cosmos in the lower photo. Those are single flowers, meaning there's a nice landing zone for a pollinator to access the pollen and nectar. Sometimes flowers have are thought to be double flowers, where the anther is actually replaced by additional petals, and it's a little bit more difficult for the insect to access the pollen and nectar sources. So simple flowers, if you think about it, will definitely bring about your bees and butterflies. And I already talked about providing a clean water source. I would also encourage no-mow zones. I know this is something the colleges are considering, and students are actually working with the Office of Sustainability to try to create a few test or pilot plots for no-mow zones on campus. But if you were to do that on your home property, it's not necessarily, I do this, I hold off on mowing until dandelion season is well established, because that is, they're primarily pollinated by honeybees. But if you did choose to have a no-mow zone, there are what some people call are weeds that are attracted by pollinators as well. And some of them are even edible to us if you really want to get really into it. So here's a nice quote that I thought is nice. When you're in a way, I'm sure my neighbors, if any of them are listening, they're like, oh, Sarah, she leaves all her leaves, and I don't leave. My property is not a carpet of green. But it's a colorful rainbow during the season. I'm trying to, but you do have to tolerate a little mess. And I'm okay with that, because honestly, I have a hard time even keeping up. So it's the bees cut me some slack a little bit and allow me to wait on my mowing and delay or postpone my raking. And I don't use pesticides in that. I'm trying my hardest to help especially my bees on my property, but pollinators to thrive. So there are actions and steps you can take to assist and encourage those pollinators to thrive by considering all of the alternatives. And I have this colorful image on the right here from the Farmer's Almanac in terms of companion planting, but there's other steps that you could take before even having to spend money and put yourself at risk of using pesticides and the pollinators at risk, but using physical barriers. Some people cover their plants, biological controls where you could potentially be introducing an insect to fight or consume the pest that you're trying to cope with. The way you organize your plantings and what plant is next to what could actually help each other. That's where companion planting comes in, where a lot of the times the two plants that are coexisting next to each other actually repel some of the pests, or also you could overplant a certain crop knowing that a pest will come so that you'll get the bounty that you expect by overplanting, knowing you'll lose some to a pest. I know space is a restriction on some properties, but that's one way of just knowing you'll lose some to pests. That's, again, where your tolerance is built up. But if you must spray, I've listed a number of things that I would highly encourage you to consider in those activities. Using low residual pesticides and not applying it at certain times of the day. Honeybees they get a little lazy early morning and late evening, so those are windows of time in which applications would be less impactful to honeybees, I know. But also, if I would say, notify your local beekeeper or owner of a hive, in that they can also close down the hive for a time period if they are spraying. And I should also mention, I have had hives in locations where it's drift. It's not the property owner where my hive is at that they're doing anything, but I have had hives poisoned due to drift from neighboring properties. So it really does take a community and a neighborly agreement, I guess, to work towards this prevention or somewhat restricted use of pesticides and leaning more towards the alternatives. And I know, again, Sarah and I forget her name. I'm just blanking. Anne, sorry. Sarah and Anne had mentioned they've looked into this, and maybe they can make their more specific recommendations too. And then the educate and advocate. This is somewhat self-promotion. No, it just is self-promotion here. But I'm a local beekeeper, and I would encourage you to support your local beekeeper in that it is buying local. You're getting it from the source without the travel miles and the carbon emissions in between. I would encourage you to purchase organic. There is no such thing as organic honey, though. But purchasing organic casts a vote with your dollar as to where your priorities are in terms of the types. If chemicals are used, what types are used. There are chemicals used in organic farming and growing, but those that are more sensitive to pollinators. Obviously, reach out to others. I try to do these educational opportunities, but even as a community or as an individual or a family, you can participate in, Pollinator Week or Honeybee Day, or simply just swap seeds and plants. I will be placing plants at the Little Free Farm stand once frost has passed in late May, probably, on State Street and in Galvin Park. So give, take, swap at the Little Free Farm stand if you have extra pollinator plants. And then support groups that promote science-based and practical efforts for pollinators. And one example would be to even participate in a citizen science project. There's a number of them out there monitoring bird populations and migrations, but also monarch, hatching them at home and doing a release, all sorts of somewhat kind of engaging activities, but also those that help with kids learning as well. If you're homeschooling at this time period, this is a great time to get your garden started, learn more about pollinators with your children, and advocate that with your neighbors and classmates and such. I've listed a number of different resources here. I just happened to see these two webinars advertised today. I'm not trying to highlight pesticide use, but I think these are very good. They're put on by the Xerces Society, and they are the implementers or designees of the Bee City and Bee Campus USA program. I would encourage you to attend those. They're coming up. It's perfect for Earth Week. But I also have a couple other links. How do I stop sharing? And then I go to my video. Okay. And then I have a couple books. Well, it's backwards, but Carrots Love Tomatoes. I have the old edition and the new edition, but if you're interested in companion planting and combating pests in your garden, this is a great guide. I also have this book I bought at Expo. It's full of beautiful photos and guides. I hope you can see that, ranges of where you can find these plants. I'm really into photography of plants. And then here's a nice one, Attracting Native but I'm not sure if I have, oh yes, I have one more slide, so I'm going to pop back.
Yeah. You have a question.
Oh, yay, good, okay.
Let's see.
Did you make your bee hotel?
The hotel in the photo was not made, but I have made them before. I made them with 75 Boys and Girls Club children last summer. That was fun. And we used tin cans and bamboo straws and paper straws. And we had the kids paint them and hang them at home. So I have made them, but not that one pictured. I think that one I purchased at TJ Maxx, and I have also purchased, they were on clearance for $4 at Wegmans last season. And so that's where I picked up a bunch of them for the farm. Any other questions? Oops. Yeah. So this is my contact information. I'd probably encourage you to reach out to me via my workers' Ransom contact info. I won't be at Hobart and William Smith colleges much longer. I will conclude my position and program there in the end of May. And that's all I have.
Well, thank you, Sarah. Let's see, Jacob, do you have the chat box right there? Or I'm trying to look. There was one question I think we skipped over that I'll go back to you, Jacob. But before we do that, two things.
I can take this off.
Any last questions for Sarah? I also, for those of you, I know some people are dropping off, it's getting late. I have a poll to put up about future topics, or you can, if there's things that you'd like to hear about in depth, you know, for a standalone presentation or eventually an in-person meeting, please let us know. We would like to follow up on that. I'm going to put up a poll question in a moment. I don't see any other questions coming up, but earlier there was a question that I don't think was answered, was when will the composting facility in the city of Geneva be ready to accept organic waste?
August 2020.
Well, that's soon.
Yep.
Oh, you got your survey?
Okay, is the survey showing up, I hope?
Yes, yes.
People can mark as many as you would like. So these are things that you would like to hear more about. I think that both Sarah and Jacob are pretty well schooled in rain barrels they could talk about. But there's lots of things. There's lots of people out there in the world that we could have speak on a variety of topics. So these were a handful that we put, there we go, their numbers are showing up now. But if the topic you'd like is not showing up, please feel free to put it in the chat box. I did not put one up to ask a poll question to ask you if this was useful to you, but please feel free. And we're very open to constructive suggestions of what you think is a useful way for you to get information and the kind of information you would like to get. Other speakers, Sarah or Jacob, is there anything you would like to add for the good of the order tonight?
Marina says she does not see the poll.
It might be other people are because they're voting. If you look at the bottom of your screen, there might be something that says polling near the center. If you click on that, I'm not sure what else to tell you.
I just saw a question, there. Pat Wallace asks about the elimination of slugs, and I'm not a slug expert, but my experience is I put really cheap beer out in these little tiny taster cups at the base of my plants, and that takes care of them. They like beer. It's perfect for strawberries, especially. That's my experience, at least. I did have a slug problem when I was growing thousands of marigolds, and I used it there as well, and it worked okay.
Yeah, I'm familiar with some of the trapping techniques as well, and I think you're asking for something more in depth, Pat. But just to get
that's all I know about slugs.
I don't. My colleague Amara Dunn was on. I don't know if you're still on, Amara, but I believe that there might be a nematode, a beneficial nematode that's either being used or tested against slugs. Amara, if you're out there, could you type something in the chat box for us? Anyway, it's a possibility. Even if Amara's not on still, we could look into that, and perhaps we could identify someone who addresses that as a topic, maybe with a few more things than just slugs. But
Marina did get the poll after all.
Oh, good.
Amara says, I don't know if it's available for people to buy yet.
Okay. Let's hope. Again, that's a whole nother topic too, is using these beneficial nematodes for pest control, especially for insect control, is something that both Amara and I have worked with, and has cool prospects. Now that I've mentioned Amara, she is the biological control specialist with our program with the New York State Integrated Pest Management Program. So she is not only a wonderful statewide resource, but she happens to be here locally. So why not make use of her knowledge? Would be great. Anything else? Let's just take a quick perusal here of what's coming up.
Sarah says, in the future, how to build a rain garden.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we're getting some votes. I think we're down to about, well, and people are dropping off, I think, after they vote, but we were down to about 18 or 20 people at the end. So we'll take that into account when we see how many votes have come up, but the fact that each of these is getting multiple votes shows some interest. So we will definitely be doing some more and are open to your topics. I would also say that an easy way, we have that site set up on the Town of Geneva's website for the eco questions, but you could also use it if you wanted to suggest a topic, like would you cover such and such. That's an easy way to get a hold of all of us. And other than that, I really want to thank Jacob and Sarah for all their information tonight, and all of you for coming on board. As always, we all hope that you're safe. Some of us are getting zoomed out. We Zoom all day long for work, it seems like, and others of you are more isolated in that way. But regardless, you put the effort in to do a Zoom tonight, and we appreciated having you on board. And I wish everybody a very happy Earth Day. Sarah,
you too, Jennifer.
Yeah. Sorry, Sarah, I talked over you. Go ahead.
Me, Sarah, or Sarah Britting?
You.
Oh, no, I said thank you for hosting and doing this with us. And happy Earth Day.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody. Good night. Good luck at home, and we'll talk to you again sometime soon.
Okay. See ya. Thank you.